everybody, Elisa here. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Ask a Hairdresser. That's me, I'm the hairdresser. Let's talk gray hair coverage, shall we? Anybody of a certain age, and by certain age I mean over the age of 25, we start to battle with the gray hairs. And today's topic is coloring your hair at home. Now, I'm a hairdresser, I'm a color specialist. I've been doing color professionally for 22 years. I was an educator with Goldwell. I use Goldwell hair color. But by no means is that the only hair color that's good. So whatever your hairdresser uses or whatever you choose to use at home, go for it. Gray hair is one of those things that's a little bit tricky. It's tricky in a different way than regular hair color is. Because you're dealing with two different types of hair. You're dealing with your natural hair color, whatever that is, and then you're dealing with those lovely gray hairs, or as I like to call them, God's highlights. And so you're kind of treading a fine line, because I'm sure everybody who's watching this has had an experience where you get a box color, you go home, you color your hair, your gray hair gets covered, but the rest of it turns orange. And that's a disaster because, orange hair looks good on some people, but not everybody. And it's not, if you didn't order that on the menu, it's kind of disaster when you get it. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to use at-home hair color to cover gray hair. As a hairdresser, I understand people not coming to me to get their hair color done. Usually it's economic. It costs a lot to get your hair colored, especially if you've got gray. You're going to be coming in every 3 to 6 weeks to get your roots done. And I understand as a hairdresser that that's not feasible for everybody. So I, a long time ago, decided that I was going to start helping my clients figure out how to do their hair color at home, so that when they ended up coming into me every 6 months to 12 months, their hair was in good nick and good condition, and I could work with it. Because otherwise, you're spending time as a hairdresser trying to figure out how to deal with this awful hair color when you could be doing other things that are much more fun. And don't get me wrong, I love doing color correction. I live for it. I geek out for it. But in the end, if you end up doing color correction on a client that's been doing their own hair color, they're not saving any money. And so it's important to me that there's a partnership between myself and my clients. So let's talk brands. Hair color has come a long way. Boxed hair color has come a long way in the last 10 years. Garnier, L'Oreal, Schwarzkopf, I think that they're all pretty similar in terms of quality. I know, and I haven't used it, but I've heard from people in the States that eSalon does a really nice service. You go online and you basically answer their questionnaire, and they determine for you what color they're going to send you based on the needs that you have, which I think is pretty great. I also think it's pretty great that they won't send you something if it's not recommended. And I won't get into that because it would take hours, and we don't have that kind of time. But I've heard good things about them. If you're going to cover gray, and if you're going to be within a level up or a level or two down from your natural hair color. Which brings me to my next thing. When you're doing gray coverage, you have two options. You have demi-permanent hair color, and then you have permanent hair color. The difference between the two is, I like to use the analogy, it's like demi-permanent is nylons and permanent is leggings or tights. Demi-permanent is a really strongly mixed watercolor on white paper, and permanent is like an opaque acrylic or oil paint on white paper. So that kind of does it help you, understand the difference between the two? I hope it does. So when you're dealing with gray coverage, what you need to decide first and foremost is what result do you want? If you have, like my hair, for example, I'm a low level 7 or a high 6 dirty dishwater blonde. Ugh. And I've got some sprinkles everywhere. Now for me, I don't like using permanent hair color because I like a more natural look. I like to put a hair color in that allows me to play later on. So I just did my hair yesterday, and the grays they've been turned into sparkles. They're not covered, they're not eradicated, but they've been turned from steely gray to blonde sparkles, which I love. I think, when you're doing a color on somebody, and it always amazes me when hairstylists go in and they use permanent hair color and they kill the sparkles in the hair, and then they go in and they do highlights. Well, they're there. The highlights are already there. They're just the wrong color. So think of it in terms of, you've already got the highlights. You just need to make them work for you instead of against you. Permanent hair color doesn't do that. Permanent hair color goes in and colors the gray hair exactly the color that you want it to be. But what it also does is it colors your natural hair, right? The non-gray hair. And non-gray hair will be lifted. There's always underlying pigment in your hair, and depending on basically how much ash you have in your natural hair color, when you put permanent hair color in, what permanent hair color does is it lifts up your own natural hair color, and then it deposits its own in a much more aggressive way than semi-permanent does, or demi-permanent. So what you need to realize is that you're going to be combating warmth in your hair. Now, if you like warm colors, let's say you like copper, you're golden. You are the luckiest person on the planet. If you like copper, in the reds, and you're a color like I am naturally, your life is golden. And yay. But if you have the skin tone, or you just prefer something that has no warmth in it, permanent hair color can get tricky, okay? So just be aware that permanent hair color will always raise the bar, okay? So what I tell people is, whatever color it is that you're going for, whether it's a demi-permanent or a permanent, always aim for no more than one level higher than your own, okay? And hair color goes from 2 to 10, okay? 2 being pitch black, 2 being, East Indian black hair, and 10 being Scandinavian blonde, all right? Towhead. So what you need to do is stay within no higher than one level above. So for me, that would be no higher than a level 8, all right? And no lower than, a low 6, a high 5. Because what you're gonna end up with when it fades out, when that hair color fades out, is warmth in the hair. If you like warmth, that's okay. You can go, to the lower end of that 1 to 2 shades darker. or lighter. Okay, you can push it sometimes if you like copper, for example. You can go 2 shades lighter, but only if you like copper. All right, otherwise don't do it. The other thing is when you're buying store-bought color, the difference between a store-bought color and a professional color is that their dye lots are very limited. They're trying to cover everybody under a large umbrella, okay? So the gray coverage that you're going to get is more often than not has a lot of green in it. All right, so you have to be careful because I can't tell you how many clients I've had that I've noticed that as their hair grows out, it has that, especially the blondes, has a slight greenish cast to it. That's because of the controlling pigment in the hair color that's trying to control the natural hair color that's not gray from turning bright orange. All right, so you're not going to get the same result from a box color that you are as if you came in and saw me, okay? Because I've got the knowledge and the expertise and the wall of hair color where I can mix exactly the shade that I want, the amount of control that I want. I can use different levels of developer. Are you following me? So that, the gray coverage, the permanent hair color that you're going to get in the store is going to be fairly limited as far as what it can do for you. It'll cover the gray, but you won't get that bespoke kind of, consider it off the rack as opposed to couture, right? When you're looking at colors and it's, both with demi-permanent and with permanent, you're going to have a choice between warm and cool tones. Always choose the cool tones if you're worried about your hair getting too gold or red. Always. It just, you'll thank me later. If that's what you're worried about, okay? The warm tones, they're always going to pull warmer. You're always going to end up with a more strawberry blonde or a honey colored blonde as opposed to a bone colored blonde. Does that make sense? So, anything that has less warmth in it is going to be more bone, more ice colored. All right. So if you have any qualms whatsoever, get the cooler shade. Now, with demi-permanent, what you can do with demi-permanent has a little more leeway because you're not lifting so much of that underneath pigment in your hair. You're doing more of a stain, right? Going back to the analogy of a really thickly mixed watercolor on white paper. It won't last as long, okay? But you have more flexibility. So you can choose still to have a demi-permanent color that's a cool color, but use that on the hair, leave it on, and you'll have more of a stain and it won't shift what's growing out of your head too much. And that happens a lot. People, they like their hair color and then the gray comes along and maybe not so much. So again, when you do this technique, if you use a demi-permanent, you're going to be getting gray that is really, really stained, but it's still really light. Okay, it's not going to make the gray very much darker. It's just going to stain it so that it has a cast to it, a golden cast or a brownish cast, a caramel cast, whatever it is that you choose. I hope this is making good sense. Now, when you are trying to figure out how much color to use, look at your head. Look at where the